A few years ago, if you had asked me what debt was, I would have given you a simple answer. Debt was bad. That's what I believed. My parents believed it. My friends believed it. Most personal finance advice online seemed to believe it too. So I spent years trying to avoid debt at all costs. And ironically, that decision kept me broke. At 31 years old, I was working full-time, earning more money than I ever had before, and yet every month felt exactly the same. My paycheck would arrive, bills would get paid, rent would disappear, groceries, gas, subscriptions, random expenses, and before I knew it, I was waiting for the next paycheck. Again, and again, and again. I wasn't drowning in debt. I wasn't buying luxury cars. I wasn't taking expensive vacations. I wasn't making reckless financial decisions. At least that's what I told myself. But one day I noticed something strange. The people around me who seemed to be building real wealth were doing something I had spent years avoiding. They were using debt. And not just a little. Some of them had hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Some had millions. At first, it made no sense. How could people become wealthy by doing the exact thing I was told would make me poor? That question completely changed the way I think about money, and it might change the way you think about it too. Because the truth is, not all debt is the same. But before I understood that, I had to learn the hard way. When I got my first real job after college, I promised myself I'd stay out of debt. I watched people finance new cars. I watched people rack up credit card balances. I watched people buy things they couldn't afford. And honestly, some of it looked crazy to me. So I became obsessed with avoiding debt. If I couldn't pay cash, I wouldn't buy it. Sounds responsible, right? Well, mostly. The problem wasn't what I avoided. The problem was what I ignored. I ignored investing. I ignored building assets. I ignored opportunities that could grow my wealth. Instead, I focused entirely on playing defense. I thought financial success meant avoiding mistakes. I didn't realize wealth is usually built by making smart moves. There's a huge difference. For years, my financial strategy was basically this: work, save, repeat. Work, save, repeat. And while there is absolutely nothing wrong with saving money, saving alone wasn't moving my life forward. Inflation kept making things more expensive. My savings account barely earned anything. My income increased slowly, and I felt stuck. Meanwhile, I noticed something interesting. One of my coworkers had bought a small rental property. At first, I thought he was insane. He borrowed money from the bank. He took on debt. He accepted risk. Everything I had spent years trying to avoid. A few years later, that property was generating monthly cash flow. Its value had increased. His tenant was helping pay down the loan, and his net worth had grown significantly. That's when something finally clicked. The debt wasn't making him rich. The asset was. The debt was simply the tool that allowed him to acquire the asset. That realization hit me like a truck. Because my entire life, I viewed debt as the enemy, but wealthy people often view debt differently. They ask a different question. Instead of asking, "Do I have debt?" they ask, "What is this debt helping me own?" And that's the rich person's debt secret. They don't use debt primarily to buy liabilities. They use debt to buy assets. Now let's simplify that. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket or grows in value over time. The average person often borrows money for things that lose value: cars, luxury items, gadgets, expensive lifestyle upgrades, things that make life feel richer for a moment, but often make finances weaker over time. Wealthy people tend to focus on acquiring things that produce income, appreciation, or future opportunities: businesses, real estate, investments, assets, and that's a completely different game. But here's where it gets really interesting. The biggest difference isn't financial, it's psychological. Because human beings are wired for instant rewards. Our brains love instant gratification. We love getting the thing today. We love feeling successful. We love looking successful. We love the emotional high that comes from spending money.
I know because I fell into that trap myself. There was a period when I started earning more money. For the first time in my life, I felt financially comfortable, and almost immediately, my spending increased. Better restaurants, more online shopping, more unnecessary purchases, more things I convinced myself I deserved. I wasn't trying to impress people, at least I didn't think I was, but deep down, I wanted my lifestyle to reflect my growing income, and that's where many people get stuck. Every raise becomes an excuse to spend more. Every success becomes an excuse to upgrade. Every improvement in income gets absorbed by lifestyle inflation. The result, you make more money, but somehow never feel wealthier. The wealthy often approach money differently. Instead of asking, "What can I buy?" they ask, "What can I own that will buy things for me later?" That's a completely different mindset. And once I understood it, my behaviors started changing. Slowly, not overnight. I didn't suddenly become rich. I didn't quit my job. I didn't buy 10 rental properties. I didn't become a financial genius. I simply started thinking differently. I began looking at every financial decision through a new lens. Would this purchase make me richer or poorer in the future? Would this create income or simply create another expense? Would this increase my freedom or reduce it? And something surprising happened. Many purchases that once felt exciting started feeling less attractive because I could see their future cost, not just their current price. For example, imagine spending $500 today. Most people think they spent $500. But what if that same $500 had been invested? What if it grew for decades? The real cost isn't always the purchase price. The real cost is the opportunity you gave up. That concept completely changed how I viewed money, because every dollar has a job. Every dollar can either consume value or create value, and wealthy people tend to become experts at directing dollars towards assets. Now, that doesn't mean debt is always good. Far from it. Bad debt is still dangerous. High-interest credit card debt can destroy financial progress. Borrowing money for things you can't afford can create years of stress. Using debt to maintain a lifestyle you can't sustain is one of the fastest ways to stay broke. The goal isn't to collect debt. The goal is to understand it. Debt is like fire. Used correctly, it can be incredibly powerful. Used carelessly, it can burn everything down. The difference comes down to discipline, and discipline is where most financial success actually comes from. Not intelligence, not luck, not even income. Discipline. The ability to delay gratification, the ability to think long-term, the ability to make decisions your future self will thank you for. When I finally understood that, my financial life began changing. I started investing consistently, even when the amounts felt small. I focused on acquiring assets instead of collecting possessions. I built an emergency fund. I reduced unnecessary spending. I learned patience. And over time, something amazing happened. Money became less stressful. Not because I suddenly had millions, but because I finally understood how wealth is built. Wealth isn't usually built through one giant decision. It's built through thousands of small decisions repeated over years. Most people spend their lives working for money. Wealthy people spend their lives building systems that allow money to work for them. That's the real difference, and that's the lesson I wish I had learned much earlier. If you're watching this right now, here's what I want you to remember. Don't ask whether debt is good or bad. Ask what it's helping you own. Don't focus only on earning more. Focus on acquiring assets. Don't chase a lifestyle that looks wealthy. Build a life that actually becomes wealthy. And most importantly, start thinking beyond today, because the decisions that create financial freedom rarely feel exciting in the moment. They're often boring. They're often slow. They're often invisible. But over time, they change everything. For years, I thought rich people had some secret strategy I didn't know about. But the truth is much simpler. They learned how to make money work for them instead of constantly working for money. And my life changed the moment I stopped fearing every form of debt and started understanding the difference between debt that consumes your future and debt that helps build it. Because money didn't change my life when I earned more of it. Money changed my life when I finally learned how to use it.